sir. Reading you loud and clear. Clear. The clock has started.
The clock is started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome to Pressing for Flight, live from the Space Coast, where the schedule never holds. We are just coming off our week of Starlink. Finally, we had a launch. We finally had a launch. I am your host, Stephen Marr, and I would just like to point out today I was sitting at a red light behind somebody waiting to turn left, and our turn signals were almost perfectly synced.
Oh my God.
And there's nothing more satisfying.
Did they do the thing where like they're in sync and then like 20 seconds later they start going out of sync?
Yeah,
or is
they
it, like,
finally
perfect?
did. They finally did.
Okay.
But there for about 5 or 10 seconds, I was like,
You
they're
were
in
like
sync.
right there.
They're in sync.
That's
Oh my
amazing.
gosh, they're in sync.
I don't think I've ever even paid attention to that.
Oh, I do
Right?
it all the time.
The small joys of life, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even better is when you're in like a line of traffic and instead of being in sync, they like do the wave.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know? Yeah, that's even better. Yeah.
Stephen Keagle, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, other than allergies like John.
How'd you feel about a certain email you got today?
Oh, yeah, very excited. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. Keagle's in, man. He
Keagle.
is off the wait list.
PRS 19.
So he's going to the NASA
trying for
social.
2 years.
We'll be there together. Matt Cutshaw, how are you, my brother?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm so excited for you guys,
Hey,
man.
Matt got into the press site too, although he was quarantined over there away from media for whatever reason.
I had to look at Steve-O and them from my lens
Yeah.
to see who was all over there.
Yeah,
They wouldn't let me cross the line.
right.
I'm like, man. So I was looking to see like, all right, who's all over there? Okay, I see Chris G. Like, oh, I see John Kraus. Like, oh, there's Steve-O. Like, oh, no, there's Greg. But I couldn't.
Yep.
Nope.
And
They
Becca,
wouldn't let me.
how
Hello.
is it?
How was what?
How is it?
It's great.
How's life?
My turn signals are all in sync.
Awesome.
There you go.
That's what I like to hear. You got to watch the launch from the beach by your house.
From my backyard. Yep.
Yep.
It was a great time. There's a lot of people out there. And we all thought that it was coming from a different place than it was. Every single one of us.
That happened
We
to
were
me.
all looking
Happened to
this
me
way.
too. Yep.
And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, there it is. It's halfway up the sky already.
Awesome. And the other voice you're hearing really needs no introduction. If you're into launch stuff at all, you've seen his photos. And actually, I've followed him since before he even realizes. Back when I used to live in Tennessee, I knew who John Kraus was. And he was a big inspiration, honestly.
He's not lying.
Yeah, I mentioned you to my friends in Tennessee. Becca's from Tennessee. She was a good friend of mine up there. And I was like, man, can you believe this dude? Like these photos he takes. And at the time you were only like, I don't know, 15,
12.
16. Yeah, something like
10,
that.
8,
Yeah. And
6 probably.
Fresh out of diapers.
Yeah, exactly.
and I was like, look, and it wasn't like, if this kid can do it, then I can do it too. But it was more like, your photos really stood out, and
Yeah.
especially like the launch streaks. And I had spent a lot of time with long exposure. That's kind of how I learned, was doing astrophotography and doing fire spinning photography. I don't know. Have you ever tried that? You ever
have,
tried?
yeah,
Isn't that's such a cool thing?
Yeah, the steel wool.
That too. Actually, you know what? I never had a chance to do it, but more like poi. It's
Okay.
fire spinning. It's like a
No, I've never
chain.
done that.
Dude.
I have done the wool though.
And so yeah, from doing that, like when I saw your photos, your streak photos, I was like, I think I know how it's done. Not that I didn't know instinctively like what the settings would be, but I knew that
Yeah.
if I could witness a few night launches, I'd be able to dial in what those settings should
Mhm.
be. So yeah, man. Yeah, you may not have ever known that, but you were definitely a big inspiration
Well, I
for me wanting
appreciate
to
it.
do this.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask, so why is Canon so much better than Nikon?
Sorry. What was that you said there? You said why is Nikon so much better than Canon? You
Whoa,
kind of
whoa,
cut out for a second.
Oh yeah.
Or you said something in reverse there. I might have.
Yeah,
Maybe the
you had
headphones
that.
are a little.
There was a C word in there somewhere. I don't know what he's talking about, man.
Right.
So we kind of had this discussion the other day when we were talking about our remote camera photos from the Starlink mission. I firmly believe that anyone that's competent with their camera of choice can be competent with more or less any other camera of choice, because for the most part, they're all on an equal playing field.
Mhm.
Now, all the brands do have some of their own advantages over the other, but for what we do, I think they're almost equal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's certain ones that are better with like low noise. I was talking to you about that last night, that the cameras that I have and the level that they are, they're not pro grade, they're not beginner, but they're right in the middle there, and they have a lot of noise, so that's a weakness that I realize I have with mine. And then there's cameras out there, I can't remember which ones they are, but they just excel in low light situations. And I think you even have one. Isn't a Nikon, isn't there a certain Nikon that's that way, that just has such low noise?
The main camera I use outside of the remote photography is the Nikon D850, which is known. I mean, it's a great low light performer, but I mean, Nikon and Canon both make like dedicated astrophotography cameras that I believe are really good with noise.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the higher end you get generally.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Do I have the rest of you? Are the rest of you
I'm
here?
I'm here.
Okay, hang on, John. We're having connection issues on you. Okay, there we go. We got you back.
All right, we good?
Yeah.
What-
All of a sudden it's fine.
Okay, cool. Did you? Where did I leave off and where you could hear me?
That most brands have like dedicated astrophotography cameras.
Yeah. But regardless of that, the higher end you get with each brand, generally the low light will get better.
Right.
So
right.
yeah,
In
it's
fact,
just kind of a trade-off.
there's even a website. I'm sure I always have to Google it and kind of dig to find it, but there's a website where you can pick what camera body you have, and it'll give you a complete profile of all of its colors and what its noise will look like what
Oh, that's cool.
it shows like
Yeah.
a black bar, and it shows all these different colors too, but what I'm always focused on is this black bar, and it shows you at what ISO that you would be at and what that noise would look like.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I'll have to find that. That's cool.
Yeah.
The
What?
live feed stopped on YouTube.
Oh, did it go down? Oh well.
Yeah, it says offline for me.
Well, we're still recording, so it's I guess we just won't have a live show. Oh wait, it's back.
It's back.
Yeah, no, what was that? Okay, yeah. So what I want to ask all of our guests whenever they come on is why space? And you having grown up on the Space Coast, I know that, you saw the launches all your life, and what I've seen is a lot of people, that kind of makes them where they're not as into it, right? Because, they kind of get sick of it or whatever, but that's not the case for you.
Ooh.
And we lost him again.
Having good luck with this connection tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really having a rough go of
I don't
it.
know.
Am I here?
Yeah.
We are
This just gives me more time to think of a smarter answer.
Yeah,
There you
good.
go. There you go.
I think it might be on Steve-O's end.
You think?
Yeah, Steve-O, man, I think it's your connection, man. I don't know what's going on because you're frozen now.
Well, what do you think? Should we start over? I don't think I have anybody now. I think it's just it's all me. Well, crap. Yeah, so the question was, before Spectrum rudely interrupted us, why space?
All right, my turn.
Yeah,
right?
go for it.
I'm up.
Yeah,
I'm on.
now
Okay.
you're up. Yeah,
Sweet.
why do you even like
Okay.
rockets? You're from the Space Coast. You're not supposed to be
Yeah.
into this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a lot of people around here kind of just follow it nonchalantly, like it's all NASA, it's all the space shuttle, even years after the space shuttle program ended.
Yeah.
And I was kind of one of those people that I wouldn't say that I didn't care about it, but I just kind of had a passing interest in it.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I started photography, that I really had an appreciation for it outside of just it's something cool that happens locally.
Mhm.
Um, sort of becoming interested in it from a photographic perspective gave me a new appreciation for it as a local,
Yeah.
because I started getting into like, oh well, because I wanted to start watching them. Like I realized they scrubbed often, and then I kind of realized, oh, like this is real stuff.
Yeah.
Like stuff has to go right, and then it just kind of turned into like this obsession of shooting the next launch and the next launch and the next launch, and then kind of just getting into this community and learning about the vehicles and whatnot.
So was it was launch photography your goal when you bought a camera?
No, actually,
Yeah, was curious about
when I
that.
was younger, which I guess you can say that any time, because any time in the past was when you were younger, but
That's a
a
Mitch
while
Hedberg
ago,
joke. If anybody out there knows Mitch Hedberg, he's got a joke about like, yeah, people always say, yeah, this is a picture of me when I was younger.
when I was
Well, of
younger, what a
course it
better
was you when you were
picture.
younger.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I I had a lot of kind of passive interests that I would take on for 3, 6 months or whatever, and then just kind of drop it.
Mhm.
And photography was just going to be one of those like, hey, I want to try out this hobby. So I bought a camera with no intention of shooting launches. Like it wasn't even on my radar that I would be shooting launches. But a month after I started, I'd been shooting, landscapes and beaches and wildlife and scenery around me. There was a launch, and I was like, oh, hey, that's cool. I'm gonna go take some pictures at the beach.
Right.
And yeah, I did, and it ended up being really exciting. So
Yeah.
then, a month after that, there was another one, and I just grew from there.
Yeah. There is something really exciting about launches, and I'm sure there's probably other types of photography that kind of give you the same rush, but it's like it's a build up to the thing that you're going to photograph, and it may not
Yes.
happen. There's
Yes,
always that
yes, I was gonna
possibility.
say
It
that.
may not
Yeah,
happen.
yeah, they're elusive.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed.
And then when it does happen, you get one shot. Well, I mean,
Hmm.
obviously you can take multiple shots, but you get one
Yeah,
attempt at it. Once as it's
yeah,
happening, it is moving forward and there's no stopping it.
yeah. They can't, well, I guess now they can, but they can't bring it back, so
Yeah.
to speak. They can't just
Right.
redo it.
Right.
I mean, SpaceX, you get another shot 7 minutes later, but
Yeah.
like there's no redo button
Yeah.
once it's gone, which is really appealing.
That kind of makes, for some reason, that makes me think about what do you think about when you see, or have you seen the conspiracy videos about how the landings, they're not really landing, they're just launching and they're playing the video in reverse, like
Yeah,
the SpaceX hoaxers.
there's actually a Zuma conspiracy video that uses one of my photos as the premise of illustrating that it's all fake.
Okay, which one?
But
I
I
actually
think
have your
let me
website
see
pulled
if I
up
can.
here.
Oh, which photo?
Yeah,
So if you go to the front page,
I've
I
got
think, I don't know if
I've got the streak photo because I actually
let's
scrolled to
see.
this to be like an example of a photo that I saw that was like, I want to be able
Yeah,
to do that.
hold on
Here,
one
I'll share
second.
my screen so you can see.
Thank you.
This is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's that photo.
Uh-oh. Here we go again.
Uh-oh.
No.
Spectrum added.
We've been spectrumized. Although you guys are still there. Oh, there he is.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Can you
Yeah,
hear me? Are we
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, that's the photo. That's the Zuma photo. And what I was saying was someone used that photo to try to illustrate that it's all fake,
Uh-huh.
and that I think I had just turned 18, I was being paid off by NASA. It's all the start. I don't know. I don't know.
You don't
It's been a
remember
while since I
what
watched it.
yeah, there's a video. So I'm probably gonna look it up after the show.
Let me see. Zuma, John Kraus. I think that might have. I think my internet might be going out too.
Keagle just
Yeah, we
disappeared.
just lost Keagle. Man.
What is going on, man? What on earth? This internet is fake, man.
Yeah, the whole internet is fake.
see.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, I think so. I think Keagle, he'll come on back whenever.
Oh, here, I found it.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna put it in our Twitter. Does that work?
Can you put it in? Well, no, you're not gonna be able to copy it in there.
Oh wait, no, I have.
Can you copy it into the Hangouts?
Yeah, how do I? Where's our like? Is there a chat thing?
There should be. I know how to do it on PC, but I don't know where it's at on the.
I
On
don't
the
want
app.
to paste it into this random.
So it's
Individual.
on the very end where you see the little. If you move your mouse around, you'll see it's in the corner. Looks like a chat box and it has lines
Well,
on
he's
it.
on his tablet. He's on an iPad, so it's
Oh,
gonna be a little
gotcha.
bit different.
Does Twitter work? Will you still be able to get to it?
Oh wait, yeah, I can totally. Yeah. What am I
Okay.
talking about? I can.
All right,
Duh.
sweet.
I am on a
I
computer.
really hope this guy doesn't see this. At least I think this is one of the videos I know that tried to reference my photo. If it's not this video, it's another one.
Oh, okay.
But
Here we go. So like
either
flat
way.
Earth rocket launch.
yeah, I feel like we probably shouldn't be giving them attention.
What's
But-
up, YouTube?
Well, we'll give
Good
him
to
one
be back.
view instead
So
of
today,
a bunch.
You know, when I wake up, I always monitor the enemy. Drudge report.
That's all you
And,
need.
I'm
That's all
just
you
like
need.
so baffled by this.
Drudge report.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, Musk satellite
oh,
mystery.
Wait. Okay. This is the one. This is the one you want to watch. I found it.
Okay.
Here we go.
What's up, YouTube? This is a follow-up to a video I've already done about Zuma and the SpaceX
Oh, you were
rocket
shooting for
launch that
American
just happened
space
in
back then. I didn't
2018.
realize that.
At the time,
January.
yeah.
So
Well,
this was
this is a 5-minute
not this
video.
exact picture,
I don't
believe,
really
but
want to sit here
a
and watch the whole
time-lapse
thing.
picture.
Neither do I, to be honest.
Yeah. But
But yeah,
now that
watch
it's
it later.
in my
It's pretty
history, yeah, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
back into my history, and let's see. Oh yeah, do you remember like what your first like photography subject was? Like your first attempt? I guess you said you were shooting just kind of landscapes and stuff. and
Yeah, I went out
beaches.
on the beach near my dad's house with a new camera. The afternoon I got it, I think, and I just started walking around and shooting birds and
Yeah.
seashells and just stupid
Yeah.
stuff. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no clue what I was doing.
I remember mine. I was living in Nashville at the time. I got my first Canon 60D, and my first outing was there's a lake there. It's actually a dam reservoir, Percy Priest Lake, and it was just this ugly, gloomy day, overcast, and I just I'm walking around shivering because it was like wintertime. And just the worst photos, and I didn't know anything. I knew like nothing. All I knew is that I'd been taking pictures with my phone, and I really enjoyed like sunsets and stuff. And and I was thinking, okay, well, I'll take a picture of this bird, and maybe I'll be able to put it into Photoshop or Lightroom, and I'll be able to make it good. And there,
Yeah.
I didn't understand how like when you're taking a picture. I honestly thought that just about any picture could be made good with a
Uh-huh.
little Photoshop magic, and I guess I didn't appreciate like the skill that went into photography, like real time photography.
Uh-huh.
It's just kind of like it's just
Yeah.
dumb things you just don't realize until you start getting into it.
I think with shooting for the post processing, I kind of go through waves of like times where I'll want to shoot and get it as right as possible in camera, but then I'll also have times where I'm aiming to get it right in camera so then I can do what I want to do in post processing
Right.
rather than trying to fix
Mhm.
in post processing, knowing what I want to do
Right.
and shooting for that. Hold on, someone's trying to call me and hijack this because they're a fun person.
Oh,
I
really?
should not have shared the link with him. Anyway, yeah, back to where we were. I sometimes tell what I'm doing to the wrong. Oh my God, to the wrong people.
Hey,
Oh,
Burston,
man.
you're ruining it.
Yeah.
I may have to block this individual.
You're ruining it.
Give me one moment.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry, man.
while we're
I
waiting.
laugh at really
All right,
stupid
hold
stuff.
on,
So ignore
hold on
me.
1 second.
Okay. Viewers, I'm just...
gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
What?
I'm going to take the initiative here.
Oh, you're going to call him from your phone. Well, viewers...
Oh, now he's telling me to. Anyway.
Viewers,
All right, let's
you
just see
can
what
enjoy
happens.
some of these photos of John's as I'm scrolling through, and he's dealing with his fan club over there.
Yeah, you could call it that.
Well, I mean,
Oh, that's funny.
I'm
When
kind
I
of...
sent him the link,
Huh?
he said, "Damn, who's that child?" And I just knew right from there it was gonna go downhill from there.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. I wanted to ask, what is your favorite rocket and or launch pad to shoot?
I feel like I'm legally obligated to not commit to a favorite rocket, but I will openly admit that the now likely inactive, at least for a while, launch pad, Pad 37B,
Mm-hmm.
was my favorite launch pad because of the variety of locations that it offered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had like the faraway lake shot.
That's the
You
Delta
have
pad,
the
right?
super close up. Yeah. Yeah. You have the super close up shot right by the tower.
Right.
It's just, there's so much variety there.
Oh man, that was a devastating outing for me. That was my only time setting a remote. I mean, that was like my third time ever doing it, but it was the Delta 4 medium, the last launch of that, and that that's the rocket that you got on the wall at ULA, right? Is Delta 4 medium, right?
Yeah.
And
It's the
and
Delta
I
4
always
medium.
love the way that, you know, it's got the clear flame for the liquid engine, and then the bright, you know, flames coming out from the solids, and I was really looking forward to getting something good for that, because you know, for the most part I dialed in my settings, so I knew what to do there, and I was just trying to get a good composition. And one of my cameras just died for some unknown reason, and I think it had to do with the
Really?
heat, because I actually had a wide angle on it at 8mm. It was probably a bad idea, but I had it like right up underneath the launch pad, you know, where you're talking about, get up real close and point it up. And I'm wondering if the sun beating down into that wide angle lens all day had anything to do with, maybe the camera got really hot because of that, because there was nothing keeping the sun from going into that lens all day.
Yeah.
And then maybe
we
warming up on the inside.
We set up like 20 hours before, I think, right?
Right. We
set up like the morning before the morning of launch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I've ever had heat kill a camera. Maybe once on like my third launch or something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's possible. I mean, there's so many failure points with this, and I talked about this a bit recently. A lot of the times you don't even know what caused the failure, which makes it really hard to diagnose and then fix that failure point.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just experimentation and doing all you can to mitigate failure before it happens. You know?
Yeah. And the other
it's
camera,
tricky stuff.
I think I told you about it, how I was setting up my shot. I was getting my composition, and I was using the screen instead of the viewfinder just because it's easier sometimes at different angles. But I had rolled my shutter speed to a much slower shutter speed just so I could see it on the screen and line up my shot. Forgot to roll my shutter speed back to what it needed to be. And so I just, total bonehead mistake, just forgot to do something. But that kind of makes me wonder, what are some of those kinds of mistakes that you've made in the past? Or are there any, like, you're just like, I totally screwed this up. It wasn't my camera's fault or the gear. It wasn't anything else, that, like, you had done it and you had to learn from it. So
just while I have this on my mind, there's again, because Nikons are better than Canons, there's a setting on the Nikon for when you go into live view, and let me guess what happened. Your exposure looked really dark, so you ramped up the shutter speed to get a more accurate representation on live view of what your exposure was?
Really more just so I could line it up, because I couldn't see anything because it was too dark. I was going for an engine shot.
Yeah,
and
so you needed to like increase the
slow down the shutter
speed so it would so it would look brighter on the viewfinder.
Yeah,
On the
just
screen is what you're saying.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a button on Nikon. I don't know if Canon has an equivalent, but you can like press a button that even when the exposure is dark, it'll ramp up on the screen.
Oh,
So maybe see if you can.
there might be
do that.
just a one button press that I could do. I just didn't realize
it's like
it.
that on Nikon.
Okay.
Either way, sorry for the tangent,
No,
but
that's good.
boneheaded mistakes. I'm gonna take you guys on a journey with me. Are you ready?
Let's go. I got my bags.
So, yeah, you have flown to California from Florida
Mhm.
for the launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. This launch also marks the first time that SpaceX is ever landing a booster on land
Mhm.
on the West Coast, right?
Right.
You're
This was
very
recently.
excited
This
for
was this year, right?
This was a little over a year ago.
Okay.
You're excited for this momentous occasion. And also, the launch is about 45 or 50 minutes after sunset, meaning that it's going to do the stunning twilight effect,
Yes.
similar to how it does the stunning twilight effect here on the East Coast before sunrise.
Right.
It's launch time, and you find yourself on a hill about 8 miles from the pad and landing zone. And you spent hours lining up your composition. You got there hours early. And you see the distant glow of a Falcon 9 rocket on the horizon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in all your pre-launch testing for exposures, because you're at a time of day where there's rapidly changing light levels, you are continuously doing test exposures.
Mm-hmm.
And the way your camera works, in theory, is similar for this story, how mine works. You press the button to start your exposure.
Yeah.
And then you press it to end it. There's no remote, there's no bulb mode, there's no holding. Press to start, press to stop.
Uh-huh.
So in your confusion of running so many test exposures before launch, you were running a test exposure right before launch. And when the launch happens, you press the button ending your test exposure, and then you watch the launch for 8.5 minutes. You watch that rocket land. You press the button again, and you don't see a picture on your viewfinder. Welcome to my blunder.
Dang.
Oh,
Ouch. Ouch.
Yep.
that sucks. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a great example of there's nothing you can do. The opportunity
it's
is
just-
over.
And the worst part of
Dang.
it is, so there's something called light leak when you're doing long exposures, where if your viewfinder, like this camera doesn't have a viewfinder
Mhm.
closer shutter thing,
Mhm.
but the camera I was using had a viewfinder. Like, here, actually, I can just get it. Hold on. Where you can like cover the viewfinder so that light doesn't leak through the viewfinder and then like ruin the image. And I actually had that. I was using that. So see here, you can see the viewfinder.
Yeah.
But then if you turn on this little curtain, it's black. It's grayed out. See.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not letting light in.
Oh.
So in the darkness, I just looked through that and I didn't realize that I had the viewfinder cover closed. So it looked like it was shooting because I just saw black rather than like looking through the viewfinder.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's my indication of knowing I'm shooting. If I look through and I don't see anything, in my brain that goes, okay, it's exposing.
Right. Right.
So it wasn't exposing, but because I had this curtain closed, I thought I was exposing. And there's video somewhere. I was with Trevor Mallman. I don't know if the video is public. It might be on his YouTube channel, but you can like hear me through this whole launch, like, wow, like this is the coolest launch I've ever seen. And like, I had no clue what was about to
What
happen.
was the devastation that
And
was coming your way?
just in such awe watching this. And to this date, it remains like top 3 visually with launches I've seen. But yeah, that's my long-winded way of explaining probably one of my worst blunders so far.
That's a good. I mean, that's a good blunder. I mean, you got a good
It
story.
happens on the one I fly to.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how were the pad shots? Did they turn out? Was it too foggy?
No, it was actually clear enough, but the pad shots were fine. They were exciting because it was the first time there was the landing, and that was the first time anyone in the media could set remotes near a landing.
Oh.
They were. I mean,
Really?
they were fine. It was nighttime. They were distant.
Uh-huh.
Do you have my site pulled up?
Yes, I do. I have the main
If
page.
you go to launch
Yeah.
galleries,
Okay.
if you go to the galleries and then launch galleries,
Got it.
and then scroll down maybe a third of the way, there's a photo in the middle of one of the rows of a booster landing. It's that photo. That's the launch if you were to click on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Salcom.
So, yep. You can see some semblance of a streak when I realized that I wasn't shooting, and then I started shooting.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now I'm remembering this photo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, I'll share it
Yeah,
for the
but-
others. Yeah, this one right here. Yeah. So this. Okay. So this is actually when you intended to stop the exposure.
Yeah, and then I realized what happened. I
And-
kind of threw a hissy fit, panic attack for 20 seconds, and then started that exposure.
Right. Oh man.
man.
All right. Well, hey, let's talk about this this last launch.
Yes.
Because we'd been looking.
It
I
was
know
great.
that you and Trevor and everybody had a great time up at Wallops, but we had to
Yeah,
wait.
not everyone went. Not everyone
Yeah,
went.
we
It's
got
fair.
we got a couple. We had to wait a couple more weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I was gonna give the viewers just kind of a look at the pad. I've got my video that I was taking. I'm gonna keep the volume down, but yeah, let's see. So yeah, so I showed a little bit of a look of what it looks like around the pad. You know when you're watching the webcast, you don't really get to see these angles. Of course, when we got there, the rocket was still horizontal, which was
Funnily
kind of
enough,
a bummer.
the webcast angles are usually better than the angle we get.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is an unseen angle for sure.
Yeah, and there's John walking through the frame right there. And then, let's see, kind of towards the end, you see me just hammering in my stakes. Which actually I learned from y'all's podcast, which we haven't even mentioned the name of your podcast. It's Shooting the Space, which it is real good. Him and
Yeah.
Eric Kuna, they're kind of giving away all the secrets of launch photography. And if you're into this stuff, you really want to watch. But this was my setup. I had these two boxes that I cut holes in like the night before and kind of rigged up like this. They worked just fine. I was kind of nervous about changing anything because I'm one of those like stick with what works sort of people, But I went ahead and did this, and it was fine. It was cool. Didn't really slow me down. What slowed me down is I had a little bonehead moment where I was setting up my myops. That's the sound trigger, and I got to the sound trigger menu where you set your sensitivity and stuff. And so then I start snapping at it and seeing if it's working, and it wasn't doing anything. I'd forgotten and wasted like 5 minutes trying to figure it out because I didn't hit enter on that screen, which actually turns that feature on. So I thought something was wrong. The cable was messed up or something. So I wasted at least 5 minutes trying to diagnose that issue. So that was I kind of screwed myself that way.
Half of our time at that launch
Right.
pad.
Yeah, exactly.
Not really, but close.
But I wanted to show your tracking video. I thought it was really cool, and I'm really interested in how you do this.
Me too.
Yeah, that video was great, man. Such a good video.
Well, that has 2,600 views. What?
Yeah, man, it's a great video.
Thank you.
Yeah, that tracking was spot on. There's a few people that have done that, man, but yours is definitely the smoothest.
Thank you. Yeah, I wonder how I do it.
How could you possibly do that?
I just don't-
We should
I
ask
kinda-
him sometime.
I set a camera there and it just ends up with video perfectly tracked. It's crazy. I don't I feel like I can say it, but I just can't find the words to express it, But as soon as we're off the air, I would be happy to see if I could rearrange those words
Okay.
in a way that it's
so
I'll tell you guys.
So here, I'm gonna mute this go around. So viewers, watch for this moment right here when these birds fly through right there. So those birds fly through, and if you've
The mourning
seen,
doves.
yes, if you've seen the image that I got, then you may have been curious about the health and well-being of those birds. I
I mean,
had
lack thereof.
the luckiest shot that I've ever gotten, for sure. Maybe the luckiest one I'll ever get, but with one of those birds directly in the center of the flame of the Falcon 9. And somebody on Reddit went ahead and did the math on this, factoring in how wide the exhaust plume would be and then how long a mourning dove is. And that bird is much closer to the camera than it is to the rocket. And as you can see from the video, it continued on. Let's see.
So cool.
Yeah, I'm real proud of it. I wish I could say I planned it, but it's just one of those kind of things, like, you can't plan for it, but a little preparation can go a long way with luck. And
it's cool that it's sharp too.
Yeah, because
the
of
bird is sharp.
Yeah, because of how fast the shutter was and where the f-stop was. And this one, John was kind of giving me tips on yesterday. He was trying to guess my settings, and he was way off only because I'm a dummy. I had set my f-stop to.
You got the shot.
I had set my f-stop to f11, which required me to have a much slower shutter because I was not factoring in the shake, like how much vibration is going on out there, and so it's a little bit blurrier than it would have been otherwise. And I queued up this spot on the video that we took from the press site to just give you an idea of what the shaking's like there at the press site, about 3 miles away. So this is right after liftoff.
See, poor Keagle's
and the
struggling
sounds,
with the strap there.
The sounds, oh yeah. And you see just how much it's shaking the camera here at 3 miles away, and so that kind of gave me a little bit of insight. Like, okay, I need to keep that in mind from here on out. Whenever I'm setting up remotes, because I had gone with a pretty slow shutter. Actually, it's 125th of a second. That's pretty slow, actually.
That was just crazy how it was just calm, and then all of a sudden when the shockwave finally hits, it does all of that, and then after it's like gotten to the point where it's not there anymore, then it's calm again. That was just crazy.
Yeah.
I did a half-second exposure at this launch.
You did?
If you thought 1/125th was slow.
Right. Oh, I think I know which one.
I was just screwing around, and I was like, hey, I want to try a slow shutter engine shot.
This one right here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a good shot. Yeah, that was nice.
It's okay. It'll require some more fine-tuning, but it's a cool, baseline.
Yeah, and you opted to go off-site and got this shot from Playa Linda, which is Playa Linda is such a great place to shoot, I think.
Which he was there with Michael Seeley.
Yeah,
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've talked about this publicly actually, but I'm happy to talk about it here. Why do you think I went to Playa Linda? Do you think there was anything cool that day that I may have been going for?
Oh, well, I was just going to say just to have something different than what the other photographers are getting.
Think about something really different.
Parking lot 13?
No. Not that crazy.
No, that was
different kind of rocket.
Well, there was the transit of Mercury.
Yes, there was a transit of Mercury.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that there could have been a transit of Falcon 9 too?
Oh, like you were going, like hoping it would go up in front of the sun?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we actually spent about a week doing the planning of where we needed to be, and it was actually have you guys been to Playa Linda?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so between two of the pull-offs on the road leading to Playa Linda was where we needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm sure you know, they closed those off. So we asked if we could park there. They said no. So we decided we'd park at the beach and walk. And I'm going to tell this story as politely as possible, but we ran into a less than flexible park ranger who did not like us walking to that location.
Right.
So we got turned around. So our week of planning and math and all that kind of stuff got ruined by an arbitrary decision to not let us walk a quarter mile.
Right.
And it looks like our math would have worked.
Really?
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't Ben Cooper get that shot?
He got a pad
No.
shot with.
Kind of sort of the same thing as what you're talking about.
Yeah, he
No.
got a pad shot with the sun like peeking out from
Like an
behind it. But I
eclipse
think
kind of a deal.
Oh, he got a remote, an engine shot. But what we were going for was like, let me see if I
like
can
where you
find
might actually
something.
see the entire rocket within the
Yes,
disk of the
exactly.
sun.
Oh, okay.
Let
I
me see if I
gotcha.
can like find a good way to. I'm gonna use a lens hood for this. So pretend this lens hood isn't like a lens hood and it's actually a solid circle here. If this is the sun, then we actually mapped it out so that the rocket was going to be transiting the sun,
Oh man.
but the sun is 34 degrees in altitude at launch. So we didn't just line it up over the pad. We actually used Flight Club and some trigonometry to know where it would be like in its arc to cross the sun.
That'd have been cool, man.
Unbelievable,
Yeah.
dude.
So
And here I am,
that
like
was a-
I'm waiting
that was a
for
bummer.
an opportunity when like when the sun isn't like so far to the south or something where you know and like close to sunrise where something like that will happen where it'll be just right off the pad. Like yeah, I wouldn't even know where to begin to try to align something like that where it's like hours after sunrise. Like that's really cool, man.
Yeah. We're going to go into a lot more detail about it on a podcast soon, so look out for that.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
Shooting
But
in
it was
Space.
definitely a bummer that it didn't happen.
And I've experienced that a little bit on launch day out there because a couple of those pull-offs are great places to be able to see the launch pads. And I talked to the park ranger and they said the reason they do that is because people end up parking there and walking across the road and it's dangerous and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And there's no amount of convincing you can do or being with the media or anything like that that's going to help you get permission to park there.
Yeah, I get it. But yeah, she unfortunately wasn't even willing to entertain the idea of hearing us out, which I kind of find frustrating. But rules are rules. So
rules is rules.
Nothing you can do.
All right, all-time favorite launch / picture. You know, like
all right.
You can't narrow it down to one. It's kind of an unfair question, but
my favorite
first thing that comes to mind or something.
My favorite launch from a experience perspective was the first Falcon Heavy.
Yes.
Just because it was unlike anything we had ever seen in so many ways. The rocket launching itself, the booster landings. It was the largest press coverage I had seen at a mission. It was just unprecedented, and it was such from a humanity perspective, such an exciting mission, just doing something inspiring. It was just really cool, and I haven't seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And I think the crew flights will be exciting, but in a different way. And I'm curious to see if the aura of those crewed flights matches kind of what we saw with the first Falcon Heavy flight.
Yeah, because I haven't lived here for any astronauts being launched. I've only been here since 2017, and like I imagine, at least in the first few, I understand how people's their interest is waning always, but I would imagine that the first few, like in my mind, I'm picturing like the videos that you see in the documentaries of like the Apollo missions launching and people just, people with that nervous excitement because this is the first time that they've launched on a commercial rocket and commercial, even though technically they've always been commercial, but it was always, NASA instructing a company to build these vehicles to these specifications, whereas now SpaceX and Boeing are able to kind of design their own thing with the, with the assistance of NASA. But I think there's going to be that, like, that nervous excitement and people kind of just rooting for them and pushing for them to get up there safely. So
I remember the last shuttle. I watched it from the beach where I live, and I'm like 20 plus miles south of the pads, and I mean, like, I couldn't see the sand on the beach. There were so many people.
Wow.
That's the one
all
thing
the way
about
down
that launch
there
I remember. Yeah, you just couldn't. It was crazy. I rode my bike to the beach with my dad.
Yeah.
So crowded.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just went up and into the clouds.
Right. And so that was before you were into photography, right? You were
Yeah,
you were
I had-
free to just
yeah,
enjoy it,
yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
ever miss that? Like now every launch you're trying to capture new images, and I imagine when you've got that many launches under your belt, there might be a certain level of stress about you're trying to do something new every time. Do you ever miss like watching a launch without a camera in your hand?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
But the answer may surprise you. I actually try to take a moment every launch to just watch, which you may not guess someone of my launch count would do. You
Right.
probably think like, oh, they're just shooting to shoot, and like, it's
Mm-hmm.
a job, and like,
Right.
they're trying to shoot the whole thing. But like, especially with like the streak shots, what's
Mhm.
great is you can just like press it and sit
And then,
for 3 minutes and watch it.
Yeah.
But even on the daytime ones where I'm shooting like from the VAB or whatever, like I really do like, I'll shoot the initial ascent, I'll get a couple in the sky, and then I'll watch, and then I might shoot like the like max Q when you get the little cone.
Right.
But, like I really do try to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I had one.
I do try to enjoy it.
It was Atlas 5, AEH 5, AHF 5, where I'd set both. I only had two cameras at the time, and I set them both at the pad, and so I was at the press
Oh, that's
site
risky.
with nothing. Yeah, I know. I mean, this whole thing is
Yeah.
risky. That's why I was on the bus one day asking people about insurance. Is there any way to
Yeah.
insure these things? But yeah, that was really enjoyable, being able to be at the press site, watching pretty close to the launch pad, and not have a camera in my hand. I did, of course. I couldn't help myself. I pulled out my phone and did like video and stuff, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that was a pretty launch, so you made a good choice to watch that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the one that Becca got that awesome shot just with her phone, and I was like, you have a incredible shot right there with your phone, and you need to tweet that, and I'll retweet it. And yeah, that was really good. Let's see. I feel like we're approaching an hour, but there's a couple things I want to talk about before we go.
No, I have all the time in the world.
Okay, cool.
And we got cut short, so I feel bad leaving after an hour when it really wasn't an hour.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this week, anybody that's paying attention already knows, but if you just are not necessarily as plugged in as we are here on the Space Coast, SpaceX did complete their Crew Dragon static fire, which means they held the Dragon capsule down to the ground, and they did a full duration test fire of their Super Draco engines, which those are what they rely on to get the capsule up and away from the rocket in case of a bad day, in case the rocket explodes. So this is the same test that destroyed a Dragon back in April, and pretty much set them way behind. Like they were on target to be able
More
to launch.
than we would have thought.
Right. Yeah, we were on target to see astronauts launch before the end of the year, on top of a Falcon 9, but that happened. And now, every time there's something like this happens, it's always a blessing in disguise, because this is a flaw in the system that they didn't realize they had. They had these valves that can open and close in the case that the reason they had these valves was because they foresaw in the future being able to do propulsive landing, where they might have to, control the amount of thrust that's being provided by the Super Dracos as they're coming down. And even though they deleted that capability because NASA or SpaceX, or I'm pretty sure NASA kind of nudged them in that direction, but they didn't like the idea of having little holes in the heat shield to have feet come down. So, and it also would have delayed it, having the development for that. But so they made it where they're not going to land propulsively, but I don't know if they just never thought about it. They never changed those valves. They never had a reason to change those valves, but it was those valves that allowed a little bit of fuel to leak back into the lines leading up to that. And there was a little tiny slug of propellant that settled in a spot in those hoses, and whenever the system pressurized, it fired that slug through the system, hitting the back of that valve and causing an explosion. So if that hadn't happened on the test stand that day, that problem could still be lurking in there, and they wouldn't even know about it, and we could have a really bad day in the future. So it's really good that this happened and set them back the way it did. But now they have what's called burst discs, which is just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a little pop thing. It's like
Burst
it's
disc.
a burst disc. Yeah, it's like it seals the hole, but whenever you pressurize it, it'll push through that burst disc and allow the fuel to flow. And they have to be replaced every time they're used, but ideally they'll never have to be used. So this sets us up, or sets SpaceX up, not us. We didn't do it. But it sets them up so that they can move forward with their in-flight abort test, which is one that we're all looking forward to, A, because it's another step closer to launching astronauts, but B, it's going to be a very exciting launch.
Yes.
Whenever that Dragon pops off the top of that Falcon 9 and all the wind hits the Falcon 9 and the aerodynamic weirdness happens, that the Falcon 9 is probably going to be ripped apart, and we might get to see the first explosion in recent history that nobody's upset about. It's like, okay, that's cool. We can all say that was awesome and not have to feel bad for, a payload getting lost, or heaven forbid, an astronaut, losing their life or anything, right? Like, this is the only time that I know of where it's sort of a planned failure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat, and actually I was meaning to ask you, and you may have just as much insight as I do, but do we have any idea if on that in-flight abort test, if they're going to kind of follow the same trajectory they usually follow for ISS, like going northeast up the coast? Because I'm trying to think, where would Playa Linda be better, because then you're just a little bit closer to where Max Q takes place, or what do you think? Do you think they'll just go straight out east over the ocean, get as far away from land as possible?
I'm trying to think of the best non-answer. I don't know, and I don't know enough to give any definitive answer.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I know that with the hazard maps that they provide, we'll be able to have a more definitive.
Yeah, whenever that
guess.
happens. Yeah.
I would guess northeast if I had to. I could also see it just being like more or less due east. I wouldn't see them going southeast for whatever reason, because that's usually for like the geosats that like go into a southeastern orbit. But
and then there's the Bahamas and stuff down to the southeast too.
Yeah.
Like due east might make the most sense, just to make sure that any debris doesn't fall down on anybody.
Yeah, to get it away.
Yeah.
Because it's not like some companies don't land their rockets, but those ones are way down range when they hit the ocean. But this will be different because it won't be as far into flight.
Right.
So I think maybe, I don't know, I could see either way.
Yeah. How far down range is Max Q typically?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Someone was asking me about that today, and I'm like, man, honestly, I don't know. I know when they call it out, and I know that that's usually
it also
when.
Might depend on the flight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but that's going to be really exciting, and I don't think we have a date on that, but it's supposed to be in December.
Yeah, we'll see.
So yeah, that's that, and I wanted to make sure we touch on this: the intense meteor outburst expected from the Alpha Monocerotids. This is apparently a known meteor shower that happens, but this is one, and see, there's this article about it. I recommended you. I showed this tweet on here, so you guys can go to David Blanchflower's Twitter account, and you can find the link. It's easier probably than Googling. And it shows what direction you need to be looking. It's basically kind of like towards Orion, but below Orion. And what they're predicting is that there could be upwards of 400 meteors per hour.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
On next Thursday night. So it'll be like right after we do the show. That's why I wanted to bring it up this week, because it'll be 11:50 p.m. Eastern time. That is 4:50 UTC, just depending on where you're at. I hope you know how to convert UTC to your time. But that's it's November 22nd in UTC, but here on the East Coast of the U.S., it's November 21st, next Thursday. And they're suggesting getting outside at about 11:15, and they think that this event will happen around 11:50, but they're so unsure. They're suggesting getting out there at about 11:15, and they're saying it could last a mere 15 to 40 minutes.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it has the potential of being a really cool show.
Yeah.
And man, I've been wanting to see a meteor storm ever since I heard about it. I mean, years and years ago. And I know that they're a thing, but they're just very, very rare. And they're more like probably what most people that maybe don't pay that much attention to space stuff, probably what they picture what a meteor shower should be, and are probably disappointed when they go out and see like
Yeah,
they're
they
able
see
to
like
see
2
it.
an hour.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And we do have a little bit of light pollution here, but I know that when you go out on the beach, it's not as bad because you've only got lights
Yeah.
behind you; they're not all around you. So if you're able to make it to a coast, to the East Coast, then that's good. But if you have, there's this app called Dark Sky, and it'll tell you where the good dark sky areas are nearby. But if there's 400 an hour, that seems to me like even if you have some light pollution, you still should be able to see quite a few. And we just had full moon, so I'd say by next week the moon won't be much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's that. Make sure you remember that. That is definitely worth remembering. And the other thing, I think the last thing I wanted to talk about was the boosters coming back in the morning, y'all.
Yes.
According, and actually last week I asked this Harry Stranger fellow about his satellite view, where he'd taken that picture of course I Still Love You and being towed by Hawk. And so here's his picture. I don't know how he's doing it. And
he's watching the stream, by the way.
cool. Yeah, welcome, Harry. I told you I wouldn't forget. Yeah, so it's just really cool. He had a picture of them heading out to the landing zone, and just a couple days ago, he posted this satellite photo of them. Oh, I should probably I don't know, share my screen. So
I would like to see it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not incredibly clear, but it is just really neat that he's able to somehow use these satellites to get these photos. So yeah, there it is. There's, of course, I Still Love You with the booster on board from Starlink. And according to SpaceX fleet updates, which you should definitely be following on Twitter, and hit the bell.
Absolutely.
If you're a local, especially, hit the bell so you can know when the booster's going to be here. Now, this is from 4:30 in the afternoon. This post that I'm showing. So there, he's predicting. Let's see. I wonder if he's got a new tweet up actually. Well, he just says that coverage will start from 2 a.m.
He's European,
right?
So he's probably getting some rest before.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's going to get on about 2 a.m. He said earlier that at the pace they're at, they could be here. Oh, actually, on that tweet he says 5 a.m. Eastern time. They could be here, but typically they don't come in before the sun rises.
They usually wait.
And if there's any cruise ships in the port, then they'll wait for the cruise ships to leave, and that would put it, like 7 or 8 o'clock. So we're just gonna have to kind of watch and see, maybe take a quick nap, wake up and check. Because man, I got to work at like 10:30. But I'll definitely be out there, and I just want to make sure I get as much sleep as possible, and not go out there and find out that I'm going to be waiting a few more hours.
Yeah, that's my dilemma with it.
Yeah, and
Bring a sleeping bag.
even though we live close, yeah. I mean, I can sleep in my car or whatever, but even though we live close, it's still, these things happen quickly. Whenever they decide to come in, it's like you better already be in position because they're able to.
If you're not there, it's too late.
Right, exactly. So definitely, watch John's Twitter. He's John Kraus Photos on Twitter. Watch mine. Watch, see, Keagle, are you going to be out there maybe?
Tomorrow?
Oh, you got to work about that time, don't you?
Yeah. That'll be at work.
Make sure you watch SpaceX fleet updates. This is the first booster to fly for a fourth time, so this is kind of exciting to see it come back. And there's going to be a lot of the launch photographers are going to be out there, I'm sure. Michael Seeley, no, Trevor's not in town anymore. You probably have Ken Kramer will be out there. Julia will be out there.
When is Ken never there?
Yeah, Ken's always around. Yeah,
Ken's everywhere.
So yeah, just keep your ear to the ground. We'll have some pictures for you, and I'm going to try to get a time lapse as I usually do. I think I'm going to try something a little bit different. I hope we have sunlight. It seems like the last few booster returns, it's just been overcast. I'd really like to have a little
Have you looked at
sunlight.
the weather?
No, I don't want to.
Don't.
Oh,
Looking
well.
rainy.
Okay. Well,
Let's see. Cape Canaveral, 6 a.m., 60% chance of rain, 7, 78, 69, 50.
oh
Yeah.
no.
That's high.
Oh boy.
Might be getting sprinkled on.
Get ready.
Man, well, if
The
that's the
rain jacket.
case, I don't know if I feel comfortable letting my cameras just get rained on.
You did the other day.
For what?
You did
for,
at the launch pad.
Well, but then they're in boxes. I mean, if I'm setting up for time lapse, I mean, I guess I could. It's the time. I mean, I can protect them if I'm handheld shots or whatever. I can kind of keep them, but having them just out there being pelted by rain constantly, it concerns me. I know that they're weather resistant or whatever, but it still concerns me. Even the lenses, you don't want to get water inside your lens. That's a bad place for water.
Do you want to see a secret?
Sure, I like secrets.
Ooh, secrets.
Secrets are good.
Two of the lenses I used at Starlink, one of which I can't find actually, but two of the lenses I used at Starlink actually, I don't know if this will come across well, they have water spots in them and I still use them.
Oh, really?
Just dried water spots, yeah.
So what do you do if you know that you've gotten water inside your lens? You like put
I
some
usually
heat
just set
hand
it out,
warmers around
set
it
it outside,
for a while.
use hand warmers for a day or something. Yeah, but these weren't bad enough to justify buying new lenses. So I thought hey, I'll just give it a try. And
Sounds like you need some do not eats.
yeah,
Yeah, do not eat.
yeah.
I
At this
have
point
one.
though, they're actually dried. So
Yeah.
there's no way to get them out unless I were to take it apart and clean it.
Well, yeah. Well, can you? I mean, can just average Joe
I
just
could, yeah, but
take them apart?
yeah, I mean, I would risk not putting them back together right,
Yeah.
and that's not worth the risk when they still produce usable images.
Yeah.
Get you some do not eats.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, well, the thing is, they're already dried, so
Really,
those
it's just you
packets
would want to clean them on the inside. That's it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's not active moisture. That happened 6 months ago or something.
Oh, okay. Maybe that'd be a good episode for shooting the space. They just have you take apart a lens.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah,
Probably
guys,
be a 6-hour episode.
Viewers, listeners, whatever. Make sure you check out their podcast. It's great. John and Eric Kuna, very knowledgeable. I mean, I'm learning a lot from it. I can't wait for you guys to get into some more in-depth stuff. You've been telling a lot of stories which are very entertaining, and I'm looking forward to, you alluded to, I can't remember exactly what it was, but you alluded to something on this last episode that there towards the end you were saying, yeah, we can, I think you were talking about some processing stuff, that you could get into on future episodes, and I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. So I think that's been a show, y'all. I think we've had a great time. Luckily, we haven't had any more disconnects. We had Keagle drop out for a minute, and he probably had to restart his router, but Spectrum, we hate you.
Spectrum gang, we're out here.
Yeah. So, yeah, Keagle, why don't you play us out?
Shutdown sequence initiated. Shutting down.